For the top stitching, I'm starting with the neck and the front sections. I wanted to make this a little bit easier, just do it in sections. I'm using clips, which I really like pins normally, but these seem to be holding it nicely. So I'm using those, and I'm just doing a stitch right along the edge. So it's going pretty well. I don't have a walking foot, but I didn't use a real lofty batting, so it doesn't seem to be a problem with my machine. But I think if I had anything thicker, I'm not sure how well it would handle that. But it seems to be going pretty easy right now. And I'll do that around the entire edge of the jacket. After I'm done doing the front, I will go and I will pin all of the bottom section and top stitch that, and then we'll be able to move on to the next step. Now I'm just going around pressing all of the top stitching that I did first, and then I'll press the entire jacket, making sure that everything is in good shape. I am next going to start putting the buttonholes on first, and I have this little placket that I've made where the buttons and the buttonholes will be, so that I can have an overlap for this jacket. So that really worked out well. So there's our jacket. I will do the sleeves at the very end. I'm kind of debating on the length of those, but I think I'm at the length here. And you could do a nice roll-up cuff. This just, I don't think lends itself that well for that, but so I'm not gonna choose to do that on this one. But that would be a cute idea, and especially if you had a pretty fabric on the other side that you wanted to show off. So there we have it. Next up, buttonholes. Okay, so I'm ready to start with my buttonhole. And typically what you do, if you have just a regular flat button, you put it inside this little part and behind your foot. This happens to be a Brother sewing machine. I have the Project Runway edition, but I imagine most are similar. And then you just push that up so it holds your button tight inside of there. I'm not going to be using a flat button, so I have to do it a little differently. And what I'm going to do is take my button, and it's a shank button, so they suggest that you measure your button. So I use one of these little seam gauges. This is the handiest tool I think that I've ever bought. It's by Dritz, and it's just really, it's got centimeters and inches on either side, and it's really handy. So if I go and look at this button, and then I'm going to add to it a slight bit for the depth of the button. So that's going to bring it to just about an inch. So then I'm going to measure here to have this at 1 inch, which is almost extended totally. So that's how I'm going to do mine. I won't sit my button in just because it's not going to stay there. And I'm going to take this foot off of my machine, pushing the button down in the back. And then this is going to be installed just like this. The button would be sitting in the back. There's a little bar here. I'm going to clamp that onto my machine like that. And that looks like it's holding perfectly. So I'm going to pull this lever down. I have a lever in the back here that's going to get positioned to behind this first stop on my machine, on my foot. There's 2 little stops there. Position that and behind the first one, and make sure my machine is threaded well. Just guiding the thread, holding on to that, and guiding my fabric. Make sure it's staying straight. Here you can see a little bit on how I've been marking my buttonhole placement. I have a 4-inch spot right here that I want to have it in the center of that spot. So I use my little seam gauge. It's a very handy tool. And so I know I want to go down 1.5 inches on this side and 1.5 inches on this side. And then I'm going to have my 1-inch space for my buttonhole in between. So I just mark it with a straight line across here. And then I do a straight line across here. And in the center of this spot where I want the machine to start, I'm going to make sure there's an X there, because then it makes it easy for me to be able to see that X through this hole on my buttonhole foot. And I'm going to place that dead center underneath my foot and lower my presser foot. Try to get this thread on the other side so that we can keep that over there and a little bit out of the way. Let me make sure I've got it on my X here. Perfect. There. And then I have mine. I chose number 38 for my stitch. So I'm going to just let the machine do the work and it will stop when it's done. I'm going to raise my foot. This one does not have a as much of a thread around it. It's basically a single line. So what I do is I just leave it in position, don't touch anything, and then I just do this one more time. And I like this stitch a little bit better because it was a little bit of a wider stitch. And because there is a little bit of bulk here, I just felt that that was going to work better. Trying on my jacket. We're getting closer to the end. I've got the buttons hand sewn on, just measured in between each of these rectangular sections. It worked out really well. And here's the buttonholes. They're all set. And they work really well. I'm very happy with that. I'm just at the point where I need to iron everything, give it a good press, and I want to check on the length of the sleeves before I hem those up. And I think I'm going to go with about midway on my hand, not quite down to my knuckles, but give me a little extra room. You raise your arm up and it's going to shorten, and I like to have a long warm sleeve because the cold weather is here upon us already. So I'm going to definitely need my jacket, but I'm really happy with the way this turned out. It's a nice fit. I like my stuff a little bit loose, and it's a little loose. I could possibly wear a sweater underneath it, but I really don't think I'll need to. It's really warm. So I am going to give it a good press, and then I think this is the length I've decided on, so I want to make sure that I do those perfectly so that they both look the same. And I will show you the finished product on my nice fall trip that I'm taking. Okay, so I had 2 inches. I decided to cut it down to 1 inch so it wouldn't be too thick. And I'm pinning around this part first, the outer edge, the outer fabric. And I did everything with a friction pen, made my lines so I know exactly where my inch is. And I also have this, I have a small cutting mat, and it's really handy to have here so I could measure on easily on this. This happens to be a Westcott brand, not very expensive, but I use it all the time, so it is really handy to have. I do have a bigger one when I need to use a bigger one, but this one I use the most of the time is what I use. So now I'm going to take the lining and I'm going to pin that slightly inside that, so I don't have anything showing on the outside. So I'll go around and pin that and make sure it's laying nice and flat. I made sure to open my one seam underneath the sleeve. Make sure you do that and you open that up, because that is going to be bulky even when it's open to get the machine around. So I am going to just top stitch this, and that's going to give me a really nice neat finish.